Story 1.
I have only shared this one with a few people, and still when I think about it, it freaks me out. I was 16 or so, and growing up in a small town exploring out in the hills was the thing to do. This incident took place at the north end of Ruby Valley in Elko County, Nevada. Someday I will play around on Google Earth to try to find this place, but it is slightly north of the road off of Highway 93 that goes into Ruby Valley. I always like checking out old mine shafts and ghost towns. That shit really intrigues me. At the Burger Bar in Wells, Nevada, where I am from and grew up, they had these old turn-of-the-century maps under glass on the tables. On one of them it showed several ghost towns just north of Ruby Valley, so I figured I would go check them out, as I had not been in the area very often. I gassed up my '72 Dodge W200 pickup, and being a redneck and /K/ before 4chan even, I grabbed my HK91 and set out. I had found some old foundations in the lower country, and started heading into the mountains themselves and started finding abandoned mine shafts. Shit was pretty cool, so I kept going up. I took this ancient road that was no more than an overgrown cattle path by this point in history, and came upon a tree blocking the road. It was an old pinyon pine about 2 feet in diameter that blocked the road. After the tree the road continued straight for about 200 yards, then hooked right before coming back 180 degrees. Continuing, gonna sketch up some key locations for next post. I parked my truck in front of the tree, and set out on foot. I grabbed my HK91 with 120 round magazine in the rifle, and put 120 round mag in my back left pocket. I always had a rifle with me as I have encountered mountain lions in mine shafts before, and just generally I like to shoot shit. Get up on ridge lines and shoot boulders from a couple hundred yards away. Anyways, as soon as I climbed over the fallen tree I had a fucking creepy feeling as if I was being watched. I continued on for about 200 yards to the point where the road started curving right and gaining elevation, going towards the cabin. At this point I had the realization that not only did I feel like I was being watched, it was also dead fucking quiet out. This was in June or so, as school had just got out. Everywhere you went you could hear those fucking cicadas, but not here. It seemed as soon as I crossed the fallen tree, the mountains were silent. No bugs, no birds, nothing. Deafening silence. As I came up to the turn, there was this big fucking rock. The thing had to be about 15 feet in diameter. You could tell that it used to be on the road, but due to years of erosion, snow and all that shit, it had slid down just slightly off the road. It seemed to be red limestone, or something like that. It stood out since they are not that common in this area. I looked at the rock and you could tell that there were carvings in it at some point in time. Due to weathering though, whatever was carved on it had been worn off. I kept walking up the road, being creeped out like fuck, but I really wanted to check out the old cabin, as it was pretty obvious no one had been here in quite a while. At this point I was probably 3 hours off-road to get to this point. I got up to the cabin, and as far as abandoned houses and cabins in Nevada go, this one was in pretty good shape. All of the glass on the windows was still intact, and there were remnants of curtains behind the windows. By this point there was something in the back of my mind telling me that I should be going. I went in the cabin, and that is where I started to get the feeling that something was off. Most cabins you find out in the middle of nowhere in Nevada are barren. Nothing really left, maybe a bit of broken furniture. This one was completely furnished. Time had taken its toll, but everything was still there. What was left of an old mattress and bedding was still there. There were plates and other cookware throughout the house, along with tattered clothing and personal effects such as a chest, faded pictures and the like. What really creeped me the fuck out was the dinner table. It was set for 4 people. Dinner plate, glasses, and silverware. This was the first cabin I had ever found that was in this condition. It was as if whoever resided here had just up and left everything behind. I felt like I should not be in the cabin, and went outside to see if I could find the mine shaft or anything else. Once I was out the door, I decided to chamber around on my HK91. The sound of me racking around and echoed through the canyon, and broke the silence. As little of a thing as it was, this calmed my nerves very slightly. Directly behind the cabin was a well. It was still intact, and as I got closer, it sounded like there was noise coming from it, like a slight breeze rustling through it. When I got within about 30 feet of it, I started to smell something. It smelled absolutely putrid. Definitely something had died in the well. The smell of decay was heavy in the air, with an acrid copper scent that tore at my nostrils. I did not want to get any closer to the well, and started walking towards the left, where I could see the opening to a mine shaft up on the hill. The closer I got to it, I could start feeling a breeze coming out of it. This is not really uncommon if you have explored mine shafts before, as the breeze could be coming in from another opening for the mine. But the thing was, it was perfectly calm. As far as I could see, there were no trees moving or any signs of wind. As I got closer, another thing that struck me as odd was the breeze coming out of the shaft was hot. Most of the time it is cool, as most mine shafts maintain a constant temperature. The closer I got to the shaft, the slower I moved towards it. Nothing since I crossed the fallen tree seemed right. The closer I got to the opening of the mine shaft, the more of a feeling of dread and being watched I got. I got within about 15 feet of the shaft when the horrible smell hit me. It was the smell of decay and copper, but much stronger than the well. Right then all of my spidey senses started going off. I had to get out of there. I started turning left to book it out of there when I saw a dark shadow moving in the opening of the mine shaft. Whatever it was, it appeared to be crouched down to fit in the mine shaft. Most mine shafts I have been in have 8 to 10 feet ceilings. At first I thought it was a mountain lion, then I remembered how big the shafts were. My mind raced trying to think WTF it was. It was too big to be a black bear, which are rare in Nevada. I nearly froze with panic, and it slowly kept coming towards the opening of the mine shaft. It was probably within 10 feet of the opening and the light was starting to show. Whatever the fuck it was covered from head to toe in grayish brown fur. Then it fucking screamed. It was unlike anything I have ever heard in my fucking life. My ears were ringing from it. I flipped into panic mode and did what any good redneck would do. I fucking shot it. I pulled up my HK-91, placed the front blade on what appeared to be its center mass, and ripped off 5 rounds as fast as I could accurately shoot. If you have ever shot big game with a large caliber rifle, you know the sound when you connect with something. I had 4 solid thwunks, and 1 round that went high. This made it scream even louder than it had, in pain. At this time I started hearing more, and separate screams coming from over in the well, and in the hills above the mine shaft. I started running down the hill as fast as I fucking could. In the tree line above the road, approximately 75 to 125 yards, I could see fast movement. Rocks were tumbling down the hill and there were several other screams. From the mine shaft I could hear the wailing of whatever the fuck I had shot. Whatever it was, I had definitely connected and it was hurting. Whatever it was up in the tree line, they were running from tree to tree on all 4s, getting closer to me. As I ran towards the rock I was shooting in the general vicinity of the movement on the top of the hill. By the time I got to the limestone rock, I had expended the 20-round mag in the rifle. I ripped it out and put in my spare magazine, chambered a round, and started sprinting towards the fallen tree, approximately 200 yards away by now. I kept glancing back and whatever they were staying in the trees. I could make out their masses and fur but they would not stay in the open. I got back to the fallen tree and ate shit trying to jump over it. I got up off my ass, fired between 12 to 15 rounds at the closest movement which was approximately 50 yards away from now. I heard a few rounds connect and it started screaming louder. Between the screaming and gunshots, my ears were damn near deer. I opened the door of my truck and got the fuck in and started it up as fast as I could. Backing up to turn around I damn near put my truck down in the canyon. As I started going forward, to leave on the road I came in on was when I finally got a look at one of them. It was crouched over with its front feet on the tree. It was covered from head to toe in grayish brown fur, with long slender fingers with claws tipping off the fingers. The back of it was hunched, and the face was slender, most closely resembling that of a badger, but with sunken eyes. It was shaking its head back and forth, and it sounded like it was attempting to speak, but it was so garbled, and with the noise of my truck I could not make out WTF it was. I averaged 50 to 60 miles per hour on a shitty dirt road that I had done 15 on the way in. I did not slow down or stop until I got back to pavement. By now I was so shaken I had to stop and collect myself. I got back to town and was in a bit of shock. My dad had been a guide in the Ruby Mountains for about 20 years. He asked me how my trip went, and where I went. He could tell that I was startled, and asked where I had been. I told him that I had been north of Ruby Valley. He got quiet and asked if I had seen a cabin with a tree fallen over the road. I told him yes. He looked me in the eyes and told me that is somewhere I should never go again, especially alone. We never spoke about it again after that. I have never been back there. Part of the reason is I live in western Nevada now. But in the back of my mind there is something that is telling me I should go back. And one day I do want to go back. This was back in 2001, before camera phones, and I was too broke to afford a digital camera. I want to go back with a camera, preferably a GoPro on my helmet, and with several friends that are armed. Just something about there, even with the shit I experienced, is drawing me back. One day, I will go back. I guess I need closure on what happened that day. I will probably be on for another 30 minutes or so if anyone has any questions. After that, I can be reached by email.
Drawing. Anon posts a rough drawing of the creature.
That's really fucking sketchy, dude. Be glad that you made it out of there alive. You should definitely head back there with some equipment and back up and see what's up, if the area hasn't been quarantined by Uncle Sam yet.
Well, that's pretty damn freaky. If your dad knows about it, surely other people do too. Would I run into a shitstorm if I started asking questions around Elko/Wells?
Definitely want to make it back out there with at least 4 to 5 people well fucking armed, that is for damn sure. Still to this day it gives me goosebumps thinking about this shit. I tried researching it a bit a few years past, asking some old timers, and one of them told me a story about the rubies. I will be quick on it. During the 40s and 50s the Army Air Corps operated out of the Wendover Air Base. Every now and then during shit weather a B-25, B-17 or B-29 would smack the rubies due to poor visibility. Some of the local ranchers got recruited to help the military go up to a crash site during the winter to recover the bodies. Rancher I was talking to told me that it took them about 3 days to get up to where this crash was on horseback and recover the bodies. He said when they got to the wreckage, all of the crew members were laid out, side by side, next to each other in a clearing in the wreckage. Many of them had severed limbs, and it was apparent all died on impact. Somehow, they ended up laid out next to each other. This was at nearly 10,000 feet elevation too.
Story 2. Help my fuck, I've got one from just last year. B-23. Stalking innawoods, Arkansas Ozarks, with some new gear I'd been saving for months. Boots, tuck vest, my fuck even a milsurp gas mask. It was like Christmas. Being where I was, and wanting to field test some personal prototypes, I had my nugget on hand. Wouldn't do much against the big bears, but it'd ruin any snake/stray dog/cougar's day right to hell. Had a couple strippers and 2 Clipazines trademark I built and wanted to field test in my pouches, some rolled up targets stuck in my loops, and a light complement of survival gear, compass, topo map, thermal blanket, spare undies, extra bullet, MREs, canteen, and camelback, amphetamines, bug spray, rope, spikes, mallet, e-tool, shower powder, baby powder, TP, the works. I've done nothing heretical to my nagant, I swear. Clipazines trademark are what I call the jerry-rigged magazines I'd custom built from old cannibalized mags and sheet metal. They fit right onto any nugget's feet if you pull the floor plate out. I've also done some Heinlein-esque mods to my gas mask, an airtight at least now water feed. But I digress. Basically practicing for the inevitable commie/capitalist/Jew/goyim/beaner/Chinese/Korean/Canadian/Storan invasion. I was having a fucking great time romping around the woods, playing with my FOV in the mask, testing the reliability of the Clipazines trademark, generally having fun. I wandered next to a creek bed and decided it was time to practice my guerrilla tic-tacs. It was late summer/early fall, so no danger of getting my gear wet in the non-existent stream, shit was in more danger of water damage from my sweat. After triple checking my safety, I proceeded to do a series of scree slides and uphill hustles in full survivalist gear. Needless to say I got winded right quick. I stood panting in that dry stream bed and decided to check my position with my topo map and compass so I could set a course for home. In the middle of orienteering myself, I caught wind of a smell, in for blood and Cooper it wasn't. At first I assumed it was sweaty famunda, but the funk quickly evolved into something fucking worse. A dark undercurrent of rot, deep notes of animal musk, a bassy score of raw garbage punctuated by garlicky timpani, and a thick black score of something between skunk and rotting onion sludge, a symphony of stench. And the conductor decided to skip the adagio and drive the opening movement straight into the scherzo because that shit was getting stronger. I went into STR8 operating mode, popped an addy from my pouch for extra focus, pulled the Clipazine trademark from my nugget. It seemed to be working fine, but if I was gonna have to shoot something, I'd prefer not to have any risk of jamming. I gagged and nearly puked up that addy tab. The smell was that strong at this point. Whatever the source was, it was definitely mobile and getting closer. Fuck it, I pulled my mask up from around my neck and pulled it over my face. It helped slightly, but my fucking dumb ass waterline wasn't 100% airtight around the joint. I walked cautiously and slowly along the creek to where the slope was shallowest, listening for twig snap or animal sounds from above. I definitely heard something shuffling around up there, and it sounded bigger than what my nugget was up for. It was a near constant snuffle grunt, and sloppy, uncoordinated crunching around bark and leaves. That mixed with the smell and mind immediately jumped to big bear. Rabid big bear. Let me tell you about Ozark big bears, straight from my dad's mouth. Dad's lived in the Ozarks for 58 years, and in that time only two things have managed to shake him, the challenges of fatherhood, and the big bears. According to him, the native black bears were hunted to near extinction between the 40s and 50s. To correct this, the ANRC, NRCS, and Arkansas Fish and Game Commission released 250 bears into the Ozark and Ouachita Mountains. Their website insists that they were all black bears. My dad insists that this is bullshit. According to him, more than a few of the bears released into the Ozarks had been brown bears, and that they had interbred with the few remaining locals and the reintroduced blacks. Thanks to a little phenomenon known as hybrid vigor, the resulting offspring were bigger and meaner than their parents, and, fuck me, were also fertile. When I asked him to prove it, he simply left the summer porch, went upstairs, and came back with a manila folder labeled BB. He pulled out a couple Polaroids and asked me to take a look. I saw a big, black and brown something rooting around behind a clothesline. Dad directed my attention to the clothesline about 50 feet away from us, strung between two poles about 5 feet 6 inches off the ground. The same clothesline in the picture. The something's shoulder was about a fart's length under the line, despite being in the goddamn background. I looked through the other pictures, one of them rooting in the trash, another barely concealed by trees, all of them slightly shaky. Detail was hard to come by, but I was convinced. My dad told me two things about how to avoid getting my shit shredded by the big bears. 1. Big bears are stupid as shit, something to do with bane hybrids. This makes them more dangerous than other bears, because they ain't afraid of you. This also makes them smell like shit, and you'll smell them coming a mile off. If you smell a big bear, get inside and get upstairs, but take the shotgun first and some deer slugs. And 2, if you do see a big bear, and you ain't at home, or you ain't got a shotgun loaded with slugs, hide up a tree if you can. They're faster than you, and it ain't no use running. I tell you all this, because after 23 years I'd finally managed to prove my dad wrong about something. Well, half wrong. There's something in the Ozarks that match my dad's pictures of big bears, but whatever they are, they sure as fuck aren't bears. Back to the woods. I would have stayed in that creek bed and waited for the something to fuck off on its business, but the light was already slanting through the trees, and as bad as my dad made big bears sound, I sure as tits didn't want to be stuck with a goddamned rabid one after dark. I instead opted to climb up the opposite edge of the creek bed. Had to scramble over some big rock outcroppings and half stand, half lean against the slope of a hill, but I figured that if anything that would be one more layer of protection against the something. I had gotten a few glimpses of the something over my shoulder as I climbed, but this was my first good look at it. I just fucking stared. Like I said in my previous post, this wasn't a fucking bear. It was bear / like /, but not a bear. I've been into sci-fi my entire life, Heinlein-esque mods to my gas mask, and even got Barlow's Guide to Extraterrestrials from my awesome, late, stepmom, so when I saw the something for the first time, my fucking nerd brain immediately went, oh, a Sulador. Pick related. Except it wasn't. It looked like a Sulador, a grizzly bear, and a sloth had a three-way on top of a garbage heap to make it. It had a long prognatha snout like a stubby-ass trunk, big angular shoulders, feet that looked like manhole covers covered in dirty matted fur, and a body like a furry blimp. Its fur was the same charcoal black / day glow brown I saw in the pictures, and full of mats and clumps of dirt. I mean, I fucking stared at it, drinking in the details, trying to make fucking sense of what I was looking at for a solid 2.5 minutes, and it somehow hadn't noticed me. Jesus, these things were dumb. I remember feeling a twinge of relief. If it hadn't noticed me trying to scrabble out of a rocky gully, it won't notice me sneaking away. That was when I farted. The something stopped, my breath stopped, my heart stopped. The only sound in those woods was my fucking fart echoing and the sound of my nose blistering under the something's odoriferous assault. Like slow-mo, the thing turned its head, looked back at me, sniffed the air, and stood up. It had been shuffling around crouched low to the ground the entire time. What I had thought were shoulder blades were its fucking elbows. It could tie its shoes without bending down, but its paws probably would have crushed its Air Jordans to bits. They were like trash can lids. It sniffed the air again, and coughed/barked like it was asking me a goddamn question. Gorp. I swear on me mum, that's what it fucking sounded like. Gorp. Be me. Be dumb fuck who doesn't listen to his dad. Be awkward cringe lord who fucking farts when he's trying to sneaky breaky away from a goddamn gorp. Aim for center mass. Fire. The bullet didn't walk into the gorp, because hey, if you're gonna die might as well give your killer a stupid name in your head, right, as much as it thwump fed. There was a puff of dirt and hair when it thwump fed, and, bless my luck, the gorp flinched from the impact. Wait for blood. I guess that gorps are so covered in nasty flea-ridden hair mats that over time their poor hygiene gives them natural body armor because that thing didn't fucking bleed. What it did do was rear up and gorth at me, a low growl that my colon decided was a warning because it was producing bricks enough to construct a barricade. I worked the bolt and fired another shot, this time at its ugly sloth/bear/elephant face. This time it thwacked. So did the dirt a dozen feet to the fucker's left because it ricocheted off of its fucking skull. The gorp just stood there, staring at me, like it was too dumb to realize it could have stood in the stream bed and grabbed me by the face while I pelted it with useless bullet and shit myself. I yelled at it and fired a third shot in any direction at all, trying to scare it off. The gorp or gorth or big bear or whatever it was dropped to all fours, lurched toward me once, then did a 360 and shuffled away. It worked. I stood there until the sky turned from blue to orange before I snapped out of it and tactically retreated back home. When I got back, I told my dad everything. I probably should have mentioned that I was visiting him for a few days, oops. He could probably smell Big Bear on me, and it's no use lying to him. When I got to the part about what the big bears really were, he refused to believe me. Then he got pissed at me. Then he locked the doors and camped out upstairs for the rest of our visit. I had to fucking bring him beer from downstairs when we wanted to shoot the shit. The weird thing is, as scared as he was, and as weirded out as I was at seeing my dad as spooked as a kid who's seen a skeleton, I wasn't scared. I remember that very clearly, I wasn't scared. I guess you could say I was too/interested/ to be scared. If I was scared, I would have just bolted and I'd probably be typing this from inside a year-old gorp turd. If I had a guess, it'd probably be that the fucking Adderall I had popped kept me from switching into run home scared to mama's tid mode. Well, /k/, you probably stopped reading 2 posts ago, but that's how I met a gorp and lived.
/and/here, have you considered that what you saw might have been a megatherium, or giant ground sloth? They got pretty big, its top size was 20 feet, had long arms, and their skin was full of interlocking bones that would have been like natural chain mail. As for the stumpy-ass trunk, it may have either evolved one over time or might have had one all along. Soft tissues don't fossilize and skin impressions of the face have never been found. They lived in South America as recently as 10,000 years ago, so it's not that much of a stretch that a branch population could live in the Ozarks today. Some pictures have surfaced that some people think indicate that giant ground sloths still exist in the Appalachians, a habitat not so different from the Ozarks.
Here's the Virginia ground sloth picture. It kind of reminds me of your description.
Just got back from the store and holy shit anon. My god. My god. My god. That's a gorp. That's a gorp. If you slapped on a dinky taper trunk, stretched its arms out, and fed it till it swelled up like a curvy land whale, it'd be a gorp. Help, my god anon. Like, I'm a pretty paleo nerd, science brained commando, but that never occurred to me. For the last year or so, I've been convinced that I saw a weird Native American spirit monster, or an escaped government project, or one of those damn skinwalkers that /x/ is always fapping on about, but holy tits. There are goddamn giant ground sloths living in the Ozarks. I gotta call my dad. Story 3.
I have a story to tell. It takes place when I am alone in the Ruby Mountains, past Soldier Lake, and up the pass near Hidden Lake. I was alone on this trip, though I had been there before with friends. I carried a Glock 19 with 2 spare mags. Only the first mag had gold dots, while the others were FMJ. I figured that would be cheaper, and I would not need 60 rounds of ammo for anything. If I wanted to shoot, I did not want to waste my defensive ammo. This is a nice hike, it'd take about 4 hours to get in, and when you get up, it's a nice place, with plains and prairie at the top, surrounded by mountains. I took lots of pictures the first day, and I will post them as I go along. I have to resize them, and I am typing as I go along, so be patient. I will say this though. I will never return to those trails, nor Hidden Lake. Pick is of a stream on the lower part of the trail. For those that don't know, Hidden Lake gets its name from the fact that it's up on a ridge, and can't be seen from the trails. It's a great camping and fishing spot, and the view is awesome. To get there, you hike up the Solitaire Pass Trail, and turn at the stick in the ground. It was a hot day, but I still decided to shoot up the trail for a 4-day weekend. I got to the top in about 3.5 hours or so, made pretty good time. I set up camp, which was just a pup tent, and set about making dinner. I had gotten stuck in Elko for the first part of the day, and when I had finished making the climb, it was starting to get late. I cooked dinner on the fire, and crash hard. The first couple nights pass without anything unusual happening. Spent the days dicking around, hiking, fishing, and relaxing. Things begin late in the night Saturday, my last night there. Pick is the stick you have to turn at. Saturday I am sitting on the lake's ridge, making my way over to a spring to refill my water bottle. The water here is glass clear, but everything gets the pills just in case. As I am walking, I hear this godforsaken sound. Like dragging metal on cement. Just painfully loud and uncomfortable to hear. I looked around, but I could see no source. At this time, all the bugs and birds stopped making noise. There is always this background noise, right? You don't notice it, but it's there. I think was the only time I was ever aware of it, because it all stopped. All I could hear was the spring, and my own breathing. I don't think I have ever felt that alone in my entire life. I would have killed to be able to hear the sound of a car engine or a horn or people talking. Anything but the silence. I was on the far side of the lake, near the snow outcrop in the picture when this happened. A good 10 to 15 minutes walk back if you were in a hurry. I filled my water bottle up, and headed back. The sounds of the animals returned, but I was still nervous. When I got back, my campsite was destroyed, including my bag. Everything was scattered everywhere, and it felt like a bomb had gone off. Everything was broken or rendered useless. Even silverware was bent and twisted. The fire, which less than an hour before was burning brightly, was as dead AF if someone had dumped a bucket of water on it. I stopped being nervous and started being pissed. I figured some kids had done it. I had not seen a soul since I made the climb, but that did not mean much. I started gathering my broken belongings. I had seen a nice fairy hole and natural hole in rock along one of the ridges, and decided I would relocate my camp there. I got the fire burning again, and stuff that was unrepairable or useless I burned to save weight. As I went around cleaning up, I got this feeling. I am not quite sure how to describe it. Like you walked into someone's house without them being home, and they did not know you were there. Like you should not be there, but that is inadequate wording. I was getting nervous, and hurried up to the ridge. That's when I saw at first, a dark mass moving alongside the edge of the lake. Too far away to make out any details, but as I watched, I saw that it was following the same path that I had taken. It was thin though. Long and thin and dark. Now, I took the simplest path, so made it was just following that. But I feel that it was tracking me. Why would it need to go to a spring to drink, rather than a lake? I was starting to get a little unhinged when I saw it. I have been hunted by a mountain lion before, and the feeling I had then was just that, hunted. I was being stalked, but in a way, we were equals. Both cats and I are apex predators, and the tides could easily turn. When I saw this, any thought of killing it left my mind. I just wanted to run and hide. Run as fast and as hard as I could. I was prey. I could do nothing to this thing. The way it moved was so certain, so clean, that I knew I could not kill it. My gun that on the way up had made me feel so big felt like a toy. It moved between moving on 4 feet and 2. I hurried up the slope, and threw my stuff in the hole. I used rocks and the broken tent stakes and poles to barricade one end of it. The side ended in a drop-off, and I pulled rocks and other debris to the other side. I curled up in a ball and lodged myself in the hole, clutching my pistol in one hand and a pocket knife in the other. I could hear rocks shifting outside, further down the slope. Last bit I heard something get up the slope, and start squeaking around. It was this squeak mixed with a hiss. Though the few holes I had left, I could see flashes of dark matted fur. It had small dark eyes. Thin long snout, almost badger-like. Tapered. I could not breath. I could hear claws clicking on the rocks not 10 feet away. It searched around outside for about half hour, and then left. The rest of the night I could hear rocks shifting as something moved around on them. I think it knew I was there, but did not see me as a threat of any kind. I never slept that night. In the morning I left, and have not been back since. Sorry, no epic combat ending, just me hiding. I don't like those mountains anymore. I don't know what lurks up there, in those thin passes. Maybe it was just a critter of some sort, and my imagination ran with it. I don't know. It sounds cliché, but going though these pictures made me kinda nervous by themselves. I don't like to tell this story, and it's the first time I told it to /k/. The feeling I had is what still shakes me up. I was prey. Nothing more, nothing less. Has anyone else heard of something strange in the Rubies?
Story 4. And another one, the only time I saw a monster. Be me. Be 22. Live in the suburbs near woods. Be alone in my house since my parents are visiting their friends. Hear a really weird sound. Like rusty metal except more alive. Look out. See a gray shape cover in hair. Which does the rust sound again. It then gets up. I'm 195 and I'm shorter than our fence. When this fucker straightens he's like 30 centimeters taller. Its head does a 180 like a fucking owl. The head is spherical, with a pair of giant round eyes which have black sclera and full white dilated irises. I can't see a mouth, nose, or ears. The fucker then lifts up his arm, while still turned around. Then climbs over the fence and fucks off into the night. Pic related a shitty rendition of the thing. Story 5.
Alright, first off, for the sake of anonymity, I will be referred to as Adam in this experience and my girlfriend will be Buchanan. Cool? This happened probably just over 2 weeks ago now, and we are both still confused and terrified. Also, all pictures you see are related and were taken by me leading up to the events of that day. The picture attached is the massive tree me and Buchanan sat under and where this all started. Alright. Be at Buchanan's home. Sitting in the kitchen playing with her kitten, drinking some nice water. It reaches about 35 degrees Celsius in Australia as of now, so that shit is amazing. Just talking about useless shit with Buchanan, pretty chill. She then asks me, do you want to go check out what's over the hill near my place? More backstory. Buchanan as of then had just moved into her home about 4 or so days prior, and to the right hand side of her house was this big hill type thing and this huge field. We didn't know what was behind that hill at that moment, but I wish now we didn't decide on checking it out. Was bored as fuck, so why not? Both put our shoes on and make haste to this hill. Get to the base of the hill. We see this hill is more of a plateau type hill and runs for about 200 meters. On either side of this hill, we see 2 relatively small floodgates. Both decide to walk along the floodgates to get onto the plateau. Buchanan almost falls off. Ha had up shit. We are now on top of the hill. Success.exe. We see a massive retention pond on our right hand side and a drain on our left hand side. Both walk down to the retention pond to skip stones and shit. Both smelled something odd down there, like burnt plastic or something. Shrug it off as some hillbillies burning some shit. walking along the foot of this retention pond around to the other far right side of it. Around 7 p.m. now, getting a tiny bit dark, but barely noticeable. Both spot this massive fucking tree and decide to check it out. Stroll up to tree, I'm thinking about trying to climb it. Suddenly both me and Buchanan retch at this putrid smell upon arrival. It was the smell of rot and death. Looking around for the source of the smell now. I find it. A dead sheep. It had its fucking ribcage pulled out and put back next to it. No other sheep around, so how did this one particular sheep get here and die? Bit spooked, Buchanan wants to leave. Try shrugging it off. We decide to walk up from the carcass and sit down further away and closer to the water. Forget about the sheep, talking again. Decide to take a few pictures of the place. About 20 minutes has passed. Buchanan suddenly is nagging me for us to leave. Why? Buchanan still spooked about the sheep, and to be fair, I was too. Alright, fine. As we get up to begin walking, we hear something. Both hear some weird ass yell and some heavy running from the distance. Whatever it is, it's big. Both bit spooked, begin fast walking back. Look back. See some massive creature thing looking at us behind bushes. Fuck this shit. Gif. Start running. Suddenly hear Buchanan scream. Look behind me to see if she is alright. She fucking sprints past me like a black man for a bucket of chicken. Creature thing is running on all fours at us now. Nope. Running as fast as I can while trying to get a good look at it. From rough estimation, it was about 7 or 8 meters from backbone to head, looked cross between massive cat without tail and a black bear. Nope, the fuck out of there. Stops giving chase when we reach the floodgate we crossed. It was about 100 meters behind us when it stopped. Kind of just looked at us and walked away. What the fuck? Tell no one about this shit, still haven't. Look for paranormal forum to post for advice. Find/x/. We have no idea what that fucking thing was. It was unlike anything I could even fucking imagine. Could someone please help me and Buchanan out if you know anything at all that could relate back to this type of creature? Alright, here is my shitty little scribble of the creature. It was completely covered in black or dark looking fur, and those measurements are what I think are close estimations of its length and height. I also compared my height to it.
Did it look like this at all? I'm going off your description of a cat crossed with a black bear and that little drawing you did. That thing must have been huge.
Yeah, that is basically almost spot on. The only differences was the weight of the creature. Its head was more oval shaped and it had black fur. Good find.
Giant land sloth is what you've got here. I thought it looked and sounded familiar by the description. Just recently found this post someone made and the drawing is a perfect match. I also have a TLDR that someone in America posted, in that he mentions the smell was almost extremely repugnant.
Story 6. Please help. I don't know if this has happened to anyone else, but I still can't believe what happened to me. I don't know if this is even paranormal, but holy shit. This past week I've been spending in the Springfield area because I'm on break from school. My parents want me to come with them to our cousin's house. They live in northern Arkansas, not too far away. I like my cousins, but who I really like is their dog Lysander. Big fluffy Malamute/Husky mix, one of the prettiest dogs I've ever seen. He's always so excited to see me. Second day I'm there, yesterday, I decide to go for a hike with him. Uncle wants me to take a gun in case I run into a crazy, but I'm from Illinois suburbs and have never shot one in my life. Tell him I'll be fine, I'm a big girl now and Lyso will protect me. He agrees but tells me to stay on the trail. I drive out to a trailhead I found online. Beautiful mountainous region. This is northern Arkansas, so it's below freezing but totally manageable. The snow is just brushing the ground. I'm walking at a great pace, air is fresh, throwing sticks for Lyso. The trees are getting thicker. I know I'm never going to break a tree line or anything because these aren't big mountains. Brush is so thick that a lot of this ground doesn't really have snow, lots of exposed roots, shadows, rocky boulders in the stream beds and such. It's pretty quiet except for a few birds. Lyso is jumping around, so happy. Suddenly he freezes. Stops and sniffs the air. I can tell he's got something on his nose. He seems a little paralyzed. I suddenly feel nervous even though I try to brush it off as normal. I mean, he's a dog. He looks confused, starts padding around but is super alert. Then his ears perk up and a low growl starts in his throat. I stand behind him. What is it, buddy? His back arches like a cat and he stands in front of me, still softly growling. I've never seen him do this before. I can literally see his flight or fight reaction working. Flight wins out. He turns and starts to nudge me into the brush off trail. I trust him so I follow. I'm generally scared now. Crazy hill people fears and whatnot. He's not growling anymore but looks confused and alert again, and leads me into a little hollow a ways up the hill from the trail. There he starts to scan the landscape, and that's when I see it. I crouch down, scared out of my mind, but peering through the branches in front of me. It's a bear, a really huge one, lumbering through the woods. I know I'm probably not in danger because bears don't usually attack humans, but this one is huge. I didn't even know bears were in this area. I'm cursing myself for not bringing that gun. Then I start to notice that the bear is walking funny. It's still a ways off and the branches are hiding it, but it looks like it's swaying from side to side with each step, as if it's drunk or is dragging something. Like its arms are too long for its legs. When it gets closer I see that it's definitely not a bear. At least not a normal one. The forearms look way more like human proportions, and its fur looks more like a buffalo or mountain goat of something. Although its back looks like a bear, its neck is longer. And it has a tail. Never seen a bear with a tail. It's kinda wagging too, sweeping back and forth. Lyso is dead silent, still on alert, but clearly just as scared as I am. The bear thing is rummaging around, getting closer, but for something that big and ungraceful it's really quiet. Like, it definitely should be making more noise. Lyso starts to move and I grab him by the collar and put an arm around him, begging him to keep quiet. Too late. He barks, really loud, mean one, and the bear thing looks up quickly. I can't even describe the face. It's like this fat, furry bear/moose hybrid, small eyes, weird lip things. It has these small ears, and they shoot up as it's looking up the hill right at me. I'm still holding Lyso and I'm starting to pray at this point. Then the bear thing slowly starts to stand up. My heart skips a beat. It's way bigger than I thought it was. And its arms are so terrifyingly long for its body. I let go of Lyso, he bolts down the hill, teeth baring and barking like crazy. The thing looks confused and scared and turns around, starts to hightail it back the way it came. It's running this weird long-armed bear gallop, breaking branches but still with super quiet footsteps. I run down the hill after it as Lyso chases it away. 30 seconds later he comes back and licks my hand. I'm totally shaken. We get back on the trail and head back to my car. What the hell was that? When I got home my family believed me, but I had a hard time explaining it. My dad and uncle think that it was a bear with some kind of severe deformity, like a growth hormone gene gone wrong and fucking up its bone structure. They said there's a few bears in those mountains and maybe inbreeding messed that one up, but its face was definitely not a normal animal. I honestly think I saw Bigfoot, or maybe what her people think is Bigfoot. When it stood up on its hind legs its silhouette could definitely pass for a furry primate, and holy shit it was huge. This is literally my first time even posting on /x/, but since I knew 4chan I came here.
Did it look like this?
Yes wait sort of. WTF is that? The nose was bigger and I don't know about the tongue, but is that a dogman sighting?
Looks like a giant ground sloth to me.
We have some similar things in Tennessee.
This is fucking nuts. I'm looking up photos of ground sloths and these are almost exactly what I saw. Like down to the exact shape of the head. Tell me other people have seen these. Holy shit, I'm convinced that's what it was. This is insane, I'm totally freaking out. A few closing words from anons about ground sloth cryptids.
Ah yes, cryptid threads are pretty much the only thing I like on /x/ anymore. In Brazil there is a cryptid known as the mapinguari. What's interesting is that the description given by natives of this creature seemed to point to it being a giant ground sloth. It is said to have alligator-like skin. Ground sloths had something known as dermal ossicles, which were hard pieces of bone on the skin that acted as a sort of armor. Backward-facing feet. Ground sloths had inward-facing feet, which could easily lead to that description. A mouth on its stomach and a strong unpleasant smell. These could be explained by a scent gland on its stoach, which could be mistaken for a mouth and would give off a strong smell. The giant ground sloth, or Megatherium giant beast, was an omnivorous relative of the modern-day sloth that lived in Pleistocene South America. Evidence has been found suggesting giant sloths' survival into modern times. There is reason to believe Indians hunted them. Fresh skin, dung and footprints were discovered in a cave in the Patagonian region of Argentina in 1895. Tales of the native Indians revealed that when they tried hunting these creatures with arrows, the arrows bounced off their skin. It has been discovered that Megatherium had a layer of strong, bony armor in its skin, something also seen in the skins found in the cave. There have also been sightings of giant ground sloths in the area. One of the witnesses is Ramon Lista, the governor of Argentina.